Hi, I'm Mike Auerbach, Editor-in-Chief of Pharmaceutical Outsourcing Magazine. I'm here at the 13th Annual Cold Chain, GDP, and Temperature Management Logistics Forum, and I'm here talking with Gary Hutchinson, the President of Modality Solutions. Gary, thanks for joining us today.
Mike, thanks for stopping by the booth.
You're welcome, thank you. Tell me, what are some of the issues affecting the pharmaceutical industry right now, and how is Modality Solutions helping them?
Well, one of the big issues in the industry right now is the real rise of monoclonal antibodies. It's a platform a lot of new drug companies are using to go after specific disease states. And the interesting thing about monoclonal antibodies are they're a very fragile molecule, and it takes a lot in the logistics network to make sure those drugs arrive safely, purity, and the efficacy that's there. So we've done a lot of work with clients this year, just really understanding and helping to characterize those molecules and put together the logistics networks, including the thermal packaging you require to actually deliver those drugs safely. We've got a simulation lab in Bloomington, Indiana. It's really one of a kind, where you can actually test the effects of both temperature, humidity, shock, vibration, and pressure all concurrently to just really understand how the effects of those environmental hazards in your network are having an impact on your molecule. And more importantly, then how do you design the logistics systems and the packaging to protect against those hazards?
Here in Modality Solutions booth, talking with Paul Harbour. Paul, thanks for being with us today. Are there certain types of companies that you prefer to work with, or do you work with all different types of sizes of companies, or companies that manufacture different products?
In the past 5 years, we've worked with some of the largest pharmaceutical companies and then some of the smallest. And we find that there are interesting challenges regardless of the size, and we try to focus on a project-by-project basis, and the large size versus the small size doesn't, the process is still the same. Now, the biologic area, the biopharmaceutical companies are probably the ones that we have the most affinity for because of our backgrounds in the pharmaceutical and biopharm areas.
Can you tell us some of your company's success stories?
Absolutely, Mike. I think it's hard to share a lot of specifics because most of the information is covered is proprietary information. But we did have a company come to us, large pharmaceutical company. It was one of the first times they were actually getting ready to submit their application to manufacture a biologic.
Okay.
And they had some pretty significant issues on how they were approaching the cold chain management side of that. We helped them out almost right from the beginning, jumped in and really helped them address these issues directly with the FDA, but put some of the data together. And then while we were addressing those issues with the FDA to help them navigate them through the submission process and the approval process, we were also helping them on the backside, putting in the foundations for their quality management systems, their packaging qualification, and their process validations as well. So it was a very interesting project where we were brought in for an immediate need. They were right in the middle of their filing and had gotten some bad news back from the agency. They wanted our help not only to help them navigate and get through that submission, but also put the system in because they had other molecules, similar molecules in their pipeline they had to do as well. So it was that great combination where you could help somebody out immediately because they were very interested in, obviously, in getting their application approved, but also convince them they needed a better system as well, and we could come in and put those systems as well, so other molecules a little earlier in the pipeline could actually go through. And a lot of the stuff they were asked to do by the agency, which was actually very prescriptive in the approach, we could address that earlier in the process and put the data together, put the engineering work together, the characterization work together, so they could do a better job presenting the strengths of their molecule and their application the first time instead of having to do the remediation.
So where do you enter in the process of manufacturing pharmaceuticals? Do you get involved with the clinical trials, or do you get involved with the manufacturing and distribution? Do you do all of that?
We started to become involved with clinical trial operations and overseeing and applying cold chain principles into areas that typically we had not ventured into before. Prior to that, it was mostly commercial or near commercial distribution of the products. But we've had some interest from the CDC and BARDA to help out in various areas of the world to help see their clinical trials through.
You mentioned the food industry. Are there any other industries that your solutions could apply to?
I'm sure there are. Primarily our spot and where we've landed, word of mouth and interviews such as this keep us primarily centered in the pharmaceutical industry, and with some emphasis, and I think a growing emphasis on some foods, because there's a lot of farm to fork companies out there that are trying to deliver fresh produce to the doorstep, and they're as interested in temperature control as the pharmaceutical industry is.
Tell us how you approach each project and how you customize your solutions to each customer's needs.
I'd love to talk about that because I think it's a real differentiator for us. We've got deep domain expertise. We've got almost 100 years of combined experience in cold chain management in the pharmaceutical industry. So one of the first things we do is we spend a lot of time up front helping to define and diagnose the problem, so we really understand what the issues are and what those pain points are. Not only what you think the issue is right now, but go a couple levels so we can really understand what maybe the root cause analysis is on that. So we spend that time up front and we put together what we call a scoping document. So we really understand what the issues are, what the deliverables are going to be, and the value that a client is going to get out of that. The reason we put all that time up in front, because we're one of the few consulting companies out there in this space that actually do this on a fixed fee basis. So once we commit to certain deliverables on a project, you know exactly what it's going to cost, and you pay when those deliverables or those milestones are met. So it takes a lot of the risk out for both sides, so we understand exactly what's going on up front, what the deliverables are going to be, and then we get milestone payments when and those deliverables are met as well. I think it's a real differentiator for us. Our clients really appreciate it. Definitely. And that's why we say, we just want to start that conversation right now, and we're willing to invest that time and some of our expertise up front to really understand our clients' issues and put together a scoping document and a fixed fee proposal that should be right on target what they're looking for.
In a lot of cases, we can come into the midway in a project that has been a little more than what was initially planned by the pharmaceutical company, and they need additional help. And that's kind of where we come in, sometimes in mid-project. It's a challenging time to have that assessment and to kind of reset and re-level expectations in some cases. But it's critical that we go through a process that begins with setting good user requirements so that we know what success looks like when we come out on the other end. And that is probably the best level setting and expectation setting that we can provide right out of the box. We love to do the assessment first before we start to get a correct diagnosis before we start applying any kind of solutions.
How are you helping your clients prepare for future regulatory changes, and how flexible are your solutions to help them meet any future compliance requirements?
Well, this industry is so driven by regulations and the changes those in regulations. I think at last count there was 30 different country-specific regulations out there. So it's a really dynamic, changing environment. We stay on top of those regulations. We have actually a tool, a GDP assessment tool that we offer to a lot of clients really to set the baseline where they are on the compliance. And the great thing about approaching that is we can assess against all the regulations of the world if you're a global company, or you can pick and choose which regulations are most important to you or within your jurisdiction. I think a new change this year that I'm really excited about is we're getting more and more into the distribution side of the business. URAC or URAC has asked us to participate in doing some accreditation work to beef up their cold chain area, and we're starting to look more and more at boards of pharmacy requirements, which are changing as well. So we've got a great handle not only on the regulation changes for the manufacturers, but for the distributors as well. So that allows us to be really flexible, so we can go in and take a look at what you specifically need, what regulations you have to be accountable for, and tailor that assessment tool specific to your needs.
Finally, Gary, what do you see as the future of the company, and are there any additional areas that you're looking to get into?
There's really two big initiatives for us right now this year that's really changing our company. The first one is we're getting involved in clinical trial operations in the public health area. We're helping out do the actual boots on the ground operations work for two clinical trials, one in Sierra Leone, one in the Caribbean area, specifically for public health areas. I think that's a really big change for us, and we're really excited about it. And it really allows us to, in some ways too, to give back to the industry as well, and to the patients that are out there in some very difficult, challenging areas of the world. So we're very excited about that. We're definitely expanding from just a traditional engineering company focused on packaging and process validation into exciting new areas, clinical operations, and the supply chain strategy side that I think is really going to be helpful for our clients now and our future clients as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary and Paul, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you answering all my questions. Thanks again, Paul. For more information on Modality Solutions, please visit www.modality-solutions.com.